If you ask 10 people what you should cut first in order to lose weight, some of them will say red meat. It has been labeled the ultimate barrier to weight loss, and we have been told for decades that if you are eating beef, then you're essentially just adding fat to your body fat. You're actually just eating fat. But have you ever noticed how some people thrive on carnivore-style diets and they even lose weight on these diets, while others are swearing that a single burger ruined their entire weight loss progress? Is it the meat itself that's the problem, or have we just been blaming it for no reason at all? Today we are cutting through the fat, all the saturated fat, to find out if red meat is actually making you heavy or if it's just guilty by association. Welcome to Coot. Welcome back, I'm Daisy, aka D, and we are deep into our weight loss myths series to find out exactly what's holding us back when it comes to our weight loss goals. And our myth for today is a big one.
Red meat causes weight gain.
People treat steak like it's a caloric land mine. But as someone who helps women find sustainable ways to eat and lose weight through my Better in 90 program, I have found that the fear of red meat actually does more harm than good. And that's because it makes diets boring and unsustainable. And note that I say this as someone who is mainly plant-based. I'm a lentils fan. I'm the kind of person who has kale in the fridge and drinks nuts and seeds smoothies. And yet I still believe that red meat is not something that we need to fear. In fact, I was an avid meat eater when I was losing weight, and even for years after I kept it off. Now that said, let's look at why this belief exists and what your scale actually cares about. And if you're measuring these with your dresses or your trousers, let's see what your clothes actually care about. Is it the red meat or is it something else? First, let's talk about why people fear red meat and the truth behind this. First, we have the association trap. So why does red meat have such a bad reputation when it comes to weight loss? Well, it's mostly because of the burgers and fries effect. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm about to make things very interesting. You see, when researchers look at large populations, people who eat a lot of red meat often also have higher body weights compared to their plant-eating counterparts, or people who don't just eat as much red meat as these people. And so people think that it's the red meat, but here's the catch. In those studies, the people in the high red meat intake group are also most likely to drink more soda, eat more highly processed foods like burgers and fries, you know, the burgers and fries effect, exercise less, and smoke more. And this is what we call a confounding variable, such that if you're eating steak and you're accompanying it with a 32-ounce soda and burger and fries, then the steak is not the only reason that that scale is moving up. It's just guilty by association.
You know, your honor.
And so we have just blamed protein for the company it keeps. You know, like you say, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. You know, red meat just happens to be friends with burgers and fries and sodas and cigarettes and alcohol and all these other things. Secondly, let's talk about the fat angle. There is this common belief that red meat is just too high in fat to be part of any weight loss journey. And we know we tend to forget the carnivores when we're saying that.
Here's what I eat as a high-fat, 5-year carnivore. Thanks to this lifestyle, I've lost 30 pounds of fat, reversed my cystic acne, psoriasis, and eczema, and I no longer fart, have brain fog, or any PMS symptoms. I've got some oven-baked chicken wings that I baked at 380 for 45 minutes. I've got my usual cold stick of butter straight out of the fridge, unsalted. Here I have two 80-20 burger patties. I just fried it in its own beef fat. And last but not least, I've got my golden jello, the best food for skin, hair, nails, and anti-aging. The recipe is in the caption. Cheers to carnivore.
You know, people who eat red meats and, you know, they also just eat sticks of butter and they call that delicious.
But, you know, we forget all of that. Now, people just think that the high fat in red meat will cause weight gain. But now let's look at the math. On this side, we have red meat. We have a 4-ounce serving of lean steak. And that comes to about 180 calories. Now, let's bring in a 4-ounce serving of salmon. So you're probably thinking that it's going to be lower in calories. You know, it's going to be much lower than 180 calories. But here's the math. The salmon comes to 230 calories. The truth is that red meat is often, you know, not as calorie dense as people believe. Of course, you have to think about the kind of cut that you're getting.
Because the higher fat is in the meat, then the higher calories it has, the higher the number of calories it has. Yes.
But, you know, calories aside, red meat is actually very high in nutrients. It's packed with nutrients such as iron, B12, and zinc, and these actually support your metabolism. But, you know, the nutrients aside, we come back to the calories, and we can see that the weight gain is not just coming from the redness of the meat. Instead, it's coming from the total caloric intake that you get from the meal. So if you're choosing a fatty ribeye every night, then yes, you're probably going to go over your calories for the day. You're probably going to be in a surplus. You're probably going to gain weight. But if you're the kind of person that chooses lean cuts, as I see many people doing, many personal trainers, many fitness influencers just go for the lean cuts, the ground beef.
If you're trying to lose your belly fat before summer, but you love your steaks, just like I do, grab these 3 steaks at Costco. Now, don't grab the ribeye. I know it tastes so much better, but per 100 grams is 290 calories and 22 grams of fat, 24 grams of protein. This is gonna make it overall much harder for you to stay in that deficit because it has so much fat in it. Instead, grab the top sirloin steak. This one's much leaner, 210 calories, 9 grams of fat, and 29 grams of protein. This one tastes pretty good too as well. You can grab the flank steak, 190 calories, 8 grams of protein, 29 grams of protein. Now, the texture's not the greatest, but you can make some tortillas or some little stir fries, and then it ain't so bad. Grab the Irish brown roast over here, technically not a steak, per 120 calories, 3 grams of fats, and 23 grams of protein. This is the leanest option you could get.
And they end up not gaining weight. In fact, they end up losing weight or maintaining their weight. That said, this notion that red meat will inherently cause weight gain is just not true, when you consider these facts. And this means that if you do enjoy a good piece of steak, then you do not have to trade it in for a dry piece of chicken if you do not actually like chicken. And you will still see the results that you want to see. You just have to be strategic about the kind of cut you're getting and what else is on your plate. Now, how exactly do you do that? This is where we come to the better in 90 strategy, which is designed around my program. The truth is that red meat is inherently very satiating when you talk about satiety, and that helps it keep you feeling fuller for longer because it takes a long time to digest. And because of this satiety, it can help you prevent cravings. Now in my program, Better in 90, which was designed to help women lose weight and keep it off, we don't ban foods. And that means we don't ban red meat. So if you're a red meat lover, this is what you can do. You just have to manage the variables. First, focus on lean cuts. The difference between a fatty cut and a lean cut can be more than 200 calories. Now, if you're trying to lose weight, what you want to do is focus more on the leaner cuts of meat. Or, go for lean ground beef. You're probably following an influencer who is always eating ground beef. You can look at what they're getting. It's probably very lean, and this is what helps them keep eating all that red meat without gaining weight. And in this way, you still get the flavor of the red meat because I know many people love red meat. They really like how it tastes. You still get that flavor and all the iron and all those other nutrients, and you avoid the extra calories. So it's a win-win-win-win. Secondly, you have to watch out for the condiments. It's rarely the steak that's causing the weight gain. Usually, it's the butter it was cooked in, the creamy sauce that you added, the loaded baked potato on the side, and like we said, burgers and fries and sodas. Whatever else you're eating will have an effect on your total caloric intake. And these small additions may not look like much. Who cares if you had an extra baked potato? Who cares if you had fries on the side? Who cares if you added ketchup to your steak?
Yes, because some people do that.
With these small additions, you might actually even forget that you're doing them, but the truth is that they do have an effect on your total caloric intake, and this is what can put you in a surplus. Or if you're trying to lose weight, they can actually leave you at maintenance, and your weight loss will just plateau. And you'll be like, is it the red meat? No, it's not the red meat. It's, the sodas, the fries, the burgers. As we come to an end, can you actually lose weight while eating red meat?
Absolutely.
In fact, for many of my clients, the extra iron, zinc, and all these other micronutrients that they find in the red meat actually give them the energy to keep going, not just in the gym, but also at work and at home and in any other aspects of their lives. So instead of fearing red meat and what it can do to your waistline, start thinking more about the balance. Now that said, what is your forbidden food that you're afraid to eat because you think it will make you gain weight? Tell me in the comments, and maybe I'll debunk that in the next video because this was actually a request. Hit that like button if this video made you feel a little bit better about your love for red meat and your weight loss goals.
And your dinner plans for tonight.
And I'll see you in the next one.